Got it? Okay. Good morning. I was talking to Reverend Kate about a message that came through in a conversation to me, and we found today as maybe the best reading, but as I read through these scriptures, I was thinking, what was I thinking? So I want to talk about a few things. Years ago, I read in a little book, I don't even remember the book, or I can't find it, I've looked for it and looked for it, something about calling. And it was talking about how when we're on the edge of incarnation, and we're all called at times of great turmoil in the world, though I have to wonder when have there not been times of great turmoil in the world, but at any rate, we're all called to come, and we stand on the edge of incarnation. This clearly wasn't a Christian teaching, by the way. And we weigh in one hand what we're coming to accomplish for the world, how we're going to serve, and in the other hand, what we have to overcome of our own spiritual contracts in order to accomplish it. And it said, many don't come. They turn away. And when I read that, I cried. I just sobbed because I came, and you came, and Jesus came. And that's not an easy thing, is it? When I was very little, I knew I was going to suffer. I knew it was going to be a difficult life. And of course, all suffering is relative. When you look at the suffering Jesus did, mine is nothing. Maybe. Suffering is suffering, though. So I knew at a very young age it wasn't going to be easy. And my motto as a little kid was, I didn't ask to be born. And my parents used to say, that's probably true. So I have had a spiritual teacher who said, you did ask to be born, that's why you're here. So here we are, and every one of us said, okay, I will come and I will serve in whatever way it is. There's a lot of talk this week about the fulfilling of the scriptures. Peter talks about how the Jews killed Jesus to fulfill the scriptures, and the Gospel of Luke talks about how Jesus is telling them he came to fulfill the scriptures, and all of that has things about suffering. So I think there's a universal message that we will suffer, but it's not all we do because Jesus rose in glory, and we get to do that too, and we may not know that or see that. If we look at all the scriptures as we've read them, as we continue to read them, there's a lot of talk about how the end times will come, Jesus will return, and the good will be taken up, and the not so good may have their own taking up to somewhere not so pleasant. And so I want to talk a little bit about this fulfillment of the scriptures and Jesus' life. I wondered why this piece Peter brought in here was about how the Jews had to kill Jesus, not that they did directly, in order to fulfill the scriptures. Judas had to do what he did to fulfill the scriptures. But there are other scriptures that didn't make it into the Bible. What about those? And what scriptures do we want to fulfill in our lives? So that's a question. What is our calling? What is each of our calling? And what is our calling as followers of Jesus? So sin, John talks a lot about how committing sins is lawlessness, and Jesus took away our sins and has no sin in him. And I'd like to suggest that the reason Jesus had no sin in him, not that I know, and not that, the mysteries of all eternity have been revealed to me, is that Jesus was so connected to God. Jesus was God. He lived God. So he had no choice but to live sinlessly, to live with love. What does that mean to have no sin? There are those who say that sin is missing the mark. And that can be defined in some cases as being completely in alignment with the divine that we perceive as out there and with the divine that is within. And because we are all children of God, and John says how just the Christians are, it seems to me, are children of God, but we are all children of God. Everyone on this planet has that choice to be a child of God or to turn away and sin, to turn from God. So I wanted to offer something about Lucifer in this too, that when I was entering seminary and those of you who have been through seminary and other kinds of training for psychology and other things, you have to go through your stuff, your darkest stuff, because otherwise you'll bring it up. And when you're ministering to someone or counseling someone, you'll project it onto them. And my stuff all came up 2 days after seminary, and I was in real emotional agony. And I stood in the conference room at work, sobbing, and said, what do I need to know? And I had this image of Lucifer choosing not God for all eternity. Turning from love, that eternal love. He turned away from love. And that is a choice that we have to make every day. It's not a choice we make once. Oh, yes, I'm going to be with God. Yes, our baptismal vows take us there. But that's not the end, is it? Jesus died for our sins and we are free of sin, but we sin again and again and again and again by turning from God, by turning from our calling, by turning from our path. So I had actually this moment of pity for Lucifer, this sadness to choose not love for all eternity. Now, of course, if everything comes from God, I do believe personally that everything goes back to God, even Lucifer in all of eternity. It's all love. It's a choice we make in each lifetime, however, how we're going to celebrate that, how we're going to live it, how we're going to bring it out in relation to our neighbors and our friends. And when Jesus talks about fulfilling the scriptures, he talks about suffering. And he also talks about the gospel talks about opening their minds to understand the scriptures. What does that mean? Do you think it's just these scriptures? I'm going to just introduce a wayward thought here. There's the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. And some people in this world who have studied the history of religion and Christianity believe that Mary Magdalene was the disciple with whom Jesus shared all the core teachings, because the others weren't ready to hear. But Mary was willing to open her heart in love and be fully present with people. And those teachings did not make it into the Bible. However, there's a whole gospel of the beloved companion that talks about the steps to ascension that Jesus taught her. And we don't know if this was actually written by Mary Magdalene or by her disciples in the south of France. But it's very interesting. Have you thought about what it looks like to ascend? I don't hear a lot about that in this milieu. Maybe that's what the rapture is supposed to be. I don't know. But have you thought, what would it look like if your body turned into light right now and we just were taken up? Well, this teaching in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene is a step-by-step guide for ascension. Just because it's a step-by-step guide, like IKEA instructions, you know it might not be easy to follow. So I wanted to ask, what is your calling as an individual, each one of you? Do you have a calling? Not everybody has a calling, but each one of us, if we accept that earlier teaching, said, yes, I'll come. Maybe it's just to listen to somebody else once. There was the woman who founded Caritas tells the story of how her husband was giving her a massage one day and said, I have a feeling that my whole purpose in this life was to give you this massage. And he died 3 days later. And she fully accepted that that was his purpose. I mean, of course, there's plenty of other filler pieces in our lives, right? There's the getting up in the morning and feeding the cats or the dog or opening the windows, whatever it is. Maybe they don't seem so important, but everything we do is part of that living out of our calling. Simple, big. Jesus' calling obviously was pretty big. Here we are 2,000 years later, and we're still talking about the miracles he did and our calling to follow in his footsteps. And I think Jesus even asked us to do what he did, not just to worship him and put him on a pedestal. I remember reading another little quote somewhere about how having a guru is like walking in the dark woods. And the guru will send the light down. Think of Jesus as a guru. Guru just means darkness to light. And if anybody brought us light on this planet, it was Jesus. So think of that. And having a guru is having the lightning strike the path and illuminate it. But what most of us do is look up at the guru instead of the illuminated path. So how can we step into our callings? How can we see? How can we be open at least to what that illuminated path is? So this wasn't at all what I thought I was going to talk about today. I had been having a conversation with a friend who is a fundamentalist Christian and believes that the rapture is coming and that the good are going to be taken up and the ungood will be left behind to suffer. And nobody knows. I don't know. I'm not going to say that's right or wrong. It doesn't resonate with me, but that's okay. But I said to him, what if we brought all that love that we've been charged to bring to the planet, what if we did it now? As I said, people have been waiting for that second coming. Even since Paul's time, he wrote about it. That's 2,000 years ago. Well, it hasn't happened yet that we know of, or else we're just still here, right? The others went away and we don't know, but I don't think that's what happened. And he said, that's a lovely dream, but I don't think that will happen till the Prince of Peace returns. And I leave you with this question, which is what I asked him. What do you think Jesus would experience or feel if he came back to a world that had done it already and was living from that place where we were charged to love God with all our heart and our neighbors as ourselves? Amen.